Hello, I'm Erin Marcus, founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, and I want to welcome you to Ready Yet? If all you needed was a step-by-step plan of what to do, you could buy a book on how to succeed and you would be all set. But here's the rub. You'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. The Ready Yet podcast is dedicated to those who are ready to become the person who succeeds, ready to become the person who steps into more, and ready to become the best version of themselves. In the I'm Ready interview series, join me for inspiring conversations with people who figured out who they needed to be in order to achieve their dreams and were brave enough to be that person. All right, welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast, where we talk to people about who they had to become in order to achieve what they've achieved. I'm really excited today because we have Teresa Hnat with us, and I met Teresa at a networking event. I think I was the speaker or the sponsor or something at the networking event, and we hung out afterwards and chatted and enjoyed it, got to know each other a little better, and I'm like, hey, I think more people would like to hear from you. So here we are. So why don't you give everyone a little bit of a more professional introduction to who you are and what you do?
Awesome. So again, I am Teresa and I'm the owner of Teresa Hnat Studio. So I consider myself to be a storyteller, but more specifically, I'm a brand photographer and videographer. So I help women gain confidence in front of the camera and in their business so that they can put themselves out there, tell their story, and really attract and connect with their tribe.
I love it. I love it. Because one of the things I talk all the time about that holds entrepreneurs back, and sometimes it sneaks up on you and you're not even sure like what it is, but it's the insecurity around visibility. Just being willing to be out there. And I've had to, in the past year, as I've really scaled things, I've had to get to the point where I just kind of pretend it's not me. You know, I give away the creative license over what pictures get used because I'm not going to like 90% of them anyway. So I've learned my workaround for that. Rather than work through it, I'll work around it and put that in someone else's hands, and just do it that way. I got a great photographer who, according to everyone else, does fantastic work. And then the graphic design people do their stuff and they press go, and I worry about content. But before I got to that point, because that was a hard fought achievement, I absolutely, kind of like what you were saying, had to get some work done where I was comfortable and okay.
It's true. I mean, I think it's very rare for anybody to get in front of the camera and be like, hey, like, this is me. Like, I'm amazing.
I know past like 12. My niece is all about that. Right?
But at the same time, like, it's easy to put those pictures out there, and in our heads, we're like thinking all the things that other people are going to be thinking. And of course, it's all negative. But in reality, I don't think I've ever gotten personally like a bad, nasty comment, like someone saying, hey, you look like crap in this picture. Like, the chances of that happening are so minimal. And if someone does say that, like, just delete them. Like, they're clearly no one you want to be associated with anyways.
I just had this, and there's two big picture stories that I'll share with you because I know you've had this with your clients. Today we're literally working on the graphics for the landing page for my March event. I'm very excited. There's all these pictures of me. It's one very weird for that in general, where it's about Erin. It's like, but I get it. And then it's part of the brand, right? And they did this really cool graphic, and there's all these pictures, and 3 different people, without talking to each other and without talking to me, all pick the same picture as their favorite. And it's the one I like the least out of like all this work that they've done. And so that just goes to show you, you just can't judge this stuff for yourself objectively.
It's so true. Oh yeah. It always makes me laugh, like when I do a session and I show the gallery what people pick versus like, I always go through in my head and pick out like my personal favorites. And it's rare that they'll pick the same ones I picked and I pick the same ones they pick, because they see different things and I see different things. It's really kind of crazy.
So what can you tell somebody, either our do-it-yourselfers out there or even some folks who are getting ready? One of the things I've learned is I need more frequent photo shoots. Helps me a lot because I get sick of my same old photographs. So I'm doing them, I've been doing them like twice a year. I think I even might need to do that more frequently. What tips from all those people that you work on can you give to help someone get over that horrible like whatever's holding them back? My thing is I love being able to take something that is holding someone back and break it down into the tiny steps that let them actually accomplish it.
So I would say, and it's so cliche and annoying to say this, and I'm sure when I say it, people are going to slap me, but to get out there and do it, and to do it consistently. And if you are using a photographer, try and use the same one, because as you work together, like you get to know that person more, and then it's less intimidating. Like the first time you go with a photographer, it's always a little awkward because you don't quite know each other yet. But like if you keep working with them, by the third session, the fourth session, like you guys know each other, it's like no big deal anymore. You're more comfortable.
I
And
think there's more truth to that than I hadn't really thought about that before, but I think there's a lot of truth to that. The trust factor that this person will show you in a good light. As weird as it sounds, for a lot of people, it's probably a pretty intimate situation.
I consider it to be. I mean, I always feel very honored when somebody lets me photograph them, because as like an introvert myself, I don't really like it when other people take my picture either. So like I understand how it can be very nerve-wracking. But again, I like to get to know my clients even before their session. Like, so we have multiple phone calls. So by the time the session happens, like we've already chatted a while and kind of gotten to know each other. But I do have clients that I do like quarterly packages with. So every couple months we're seeing each other. So by that third month, it's like, no big deal. We're having fun out there messing around. And it's like the pictures, they change because their confidence grows.
Yeah, no, I hadn't really thought of it that time. I think that is a really, really good tip. So what else? What else do you find can help bring people out of their shell? One of the things that I think about, because it was advice given to me, don't shop under duress. Like have your stuff picked out ahead of time so you really, really know you're not settling.
Right. So again, I think planning is a great way to put yourself at ease a little bit. So again, with my clients, we plan out all the details ahead of time, what they're going to wear, where we're going to show up, what time we're going to show up. I build in extra time just in case if someone runs late, if there's traffic or whatever, we have extra time. We're not stressed out. I think even taking the day before to really just de-stress a little bit can really work wonders, because it is stressful to get your pictures taken. And branding sessions tend to be kind of long. They're not just an hour. Most of the time they're a couple hours. So you need a lot of props, you need outfit changes, and that's like a lot of stuff to bring with you if you're traveling to a location. So dealing with that the day before versus like an hour before your session, you're trying to hurriedly pack your bag. Like that's never going to go well. And I know as a myself, I'm a planny person. If I don't have a plan, it makes me very anxious. I like to know when I'm going and where I need to be and what's expected of me. So I have my stuff all packed the day before too, because I know if I try to pack it that day, my anxiety will, just be out of control.
Well, and I love what you're talking about, like take the day before, not just to get ready, but to decompress. I mean, if this is something that you have a hard time with,
Yes,
give yourself the room to be good to yourself.
definitely.
By the third, I'm sure you've got clients where by the third time you're working together, you don't need nearly as much get ready time, because now you're like, all right, nobody died, we can do this, right?
It's true. I'll have clients like I show up and they're still curling their hair or whatever. And they're like, they know it's okay. Like they know I'm not in a rush. I'm not going to hurry them along because I don't like to be rushed either. So they just know the time we spend together, I try to make it like as stress-free as possible, as chill as possible. That's my goal that day.
Well, and so that reminds me of something, because I think in the same vein as find somebody that you enjoy working with and keep working with them is, my tagline for my business is be in charge, take action, get results. And it's that whole be in charge thing. And I think there's a balance between, okay, you're not the professional, so definitely listen for professional advice, but come in with some opinion, some goal, some idea. I'm sure helps immensely.
Definitely. And again, like I always try to include I tell them like, if you have an idea, please let me know. Like I want to incorporate because in the end, it's their vision. It's not so much mine. I'll, give them ideas, but I want to make sure it accurately represents who they are. So I don't want them to feel railroaded or like their idea or input doesn't matter, because it absolutely does.
Yeah. So going back to the fact that you're already nervous, it's an intimate kind of thing. You feel all the pressure. Find someone you enjoy doing that with.
Definitely.
Give yourself another leg up.
And even doing things like making a playlist of music you enjoy listening to can be just huge help that we can play that day during the session. And when in doubt, you can always have a glass of wine. Like, I've had people do that before.
Oh my God. So my college roommate, this is so funny. My college roommate was scared of speaking in public. And she had an incident in high school when she had to give a presentation, and she was shaking so bad and holding on to the podium that she knocked it over. So she basically made her worst fear a reality. And so here we are, we're like 21, 22 years old because we're seniors in college, and she is finally getting around to taking that 101 communication course they make you take, speech, right? And so she's in there with a bunch of freshmen, and half of them still look like they're in high school, and we look like we're adults. It's that 4 years is a big difference. And I would come downstairs and find her doing shots of Everclear in front of a row of teddy bears at 7:00 in the morning as she was getting ready to go give her speech in front of the class.
Oh my God.
I mean, hey, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to condone it, but like I did an experiment a few years ago with my friends to see like what's the happy medium there.
Right.
Like,
don't
what's
get trashed.
Right, because you don't want the red face and you don't want to look sloppy. But usually at between 1 and 2 drinks is the happy medium, where you'll feel relaxed, but you won't be like sloppy drunk, or you won't have the red face or any of that.
You might have the giggles, but you won't have the...
Yes.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. So how did you decide to do this?
So,
or did it pick you?
It picked me. I have to say, in high school, I wanted to make movies. That was my thing.
Cool.
I wanted to go to film school, and my parents said, there's no way in hell you're going to do that, because, you're going to be a starving artist living in a box. That's not happening.
Under a bridge. Yeah.
Under a bridge.
The box under the bridge problem. Yes.
So of course, like I hated them for a long time because they said no. And, they were only looking out for my, best well-being. But I ended up after college working for a photographer. And when I worked for her, that's where I kind of learned everything. I learned how to print and all the back scene stuff. I learned graphic design, retouching. I learned how to light people. And at that time, video was starting to make its way into like DSLR cameras. And there was now the capability that you could take video on your camera, and you didn't need like a huge giant video recording device just to grab video. So it kind of like the two worlds kind of collided.
Like, aha, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Right. And I was like, oh, I actually have the ability to do this now. Like it was so weird how it just happened, and it came back into my life like that. And then my dad's been telling me for 10 plus years, like I've always been destined for self-employment. And for 10 plus years, I've been like, no, like there's no way that's happening because I don't want to work for myself. That's too scary.
Right.
But again, the universe like works in mysterious ways. And about a year ago, like the opportunity presented itself. I had been laid off. I had already kind of started networking and establishing myself. And then it was just like, oh, I guess I could technically do this.
So what made you pick branding and entrepreneurial photography over, not that you don't necessarily do it, but why do you like specializing in that?
So I've never been, oh God, this makes me sound like a terrible person, but I've never
Oh, I
been
don't do the puppies and puppies are okay, but the kids and
the kid. I'm not a kid
I'm
person.
not
Like
a kid person.
there is a skill
I
set
like them.
there.
They're very cute. I have
Yes.
some nieces. I just had a blast with them. I did the Oculus. Oh, I mean, so they're a lot. They're at a great age. They're a lot of fun.
But yeah, exactly. Like I love kids. Like I have a niece too. She's so much fun. But like kids photography is tough. Like it is hard, especially like toddlers. I used to do babies. Babies are fun. They're, they sleep and it's, you just kind of mold them. But toddlers are tough. Like I saw my old boss do the toddlers all the time. And I was just like props
Well, and
because
if they don't want to,
they don't
they
like,
don't. There's no what you're supposed to do. There's no
nope.
embarrassment. I mean, it's just nope.
It's fun because like it's just so raw and like what you get is what you get. And sometimes like the drama of a child, like the crying or the just happiness, it's so real and authentic. But at the same time, like it is its own little stressful package right there. And same with weddings. Like I've done weddings, they're a lot of fun, but whoo boy, are they
Expectations, because this is one shot.
Yes. Oh,
Same
yes.
thing with the babies. They're only going to be this age, and like next week, they're going to look completely different. So you got one shot.
Yep. There's like a lot of pressure there. But I think what I like the most about doing brand stories and working with other entrepreneurs is I've always loved small business. I've always worked for other small businesses. So there's like this part of me that just loves helping them grow. And I loved the creativity it like afforded me because every business is different. So they always have different needs. I'm always telling a different story, going to different places. I get bored very easy. So that part of it was so fun to me that I can do all these things. And even though I work with 3 people that might teach yoga, they're all totally doing it differently, which is so awesome.
Right. Because, well, especially in a brand photography, there's their business, there's themselves, there's the place where those merge.
Yes.
And the different approaches.
Yeah, definitely. And they are usually pretty open to me being a little kooky and creative because I like to kind of push them a little bit out of their comfort zone. So most people have been very receptive to that, which is a lot of fun.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I know I really enjoy having conversations about who you need to be in order to reach new heights. As founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, I work with my clients at the intersection where what they need to do to succeed meets who they need to be to do it. If you would like to have a conversation about your business, please reach out to me at erin@conqueryourbusiness.com.
So let's see, random thoughts and random question time. What was the biggest obstacle that you had to get past?
Me. For sure, it's me, and it's still me, like 100%. I'm still like, why can't you just do these things? Like, why do you procrastinate? And why are you so shy? And like, even now, like networking still freaks me out. Like it freaked me out 2 years ago. It still freaks me out. I make myself do it, but like, I'm just like, why can't it just be enjoyable like for other people? But to be honest, I think it freaks a lot of people out. So
yeah, I think it freaks a lot of people out. I'm just not one.
But yeah, I think myself, I'm my biggest obstacle for sure.
What do you do about it? How do you, because you're doing well. I mean, you having a podcast.
I think being aware and constantly checking in to see, where am I struggling in my business and what is causing those struggles? And 9 times out of 10, it ends up coming back to me like, why did this take so long? Well, I procrastinated a little bit, so that's why. So I think checking in and being aware of your own habits and the things that you tend to do is important. and then trying to make plans. So this year, one of the things I'm trying to really cut down on and be attentive to is my procrastination and the habits that I have regarding that.
Right. And asking, one of the best questions that I've learned, I tend to be a procrastinator, but at the same time, I learned this, I don't know where I read it, but I learned this a long time ago. I was still in corporate. There's a difference between procrastinating and percolating. Like, I don't miss deadlines. I never miss deadlines. Procrastinators tend to miss deadlines. What I often am doing is percolating. I just put it on the calendar to happen at a certain time. So when it doesn't happen, I'm mad at myself. But the truth is the idea hadn't finished formulating.
All right, that's interesting, because I have to say, when it comes to client deadlines, I don't really miss those. Like, they get done. It's my own stuff that tends to get put off or procrastinated.
Right. So it's the question becomes that I've learned to ask is, how is this serving me? How is this serving me? And the answer, unfortunately, is almost always, well, it's keeping me safe because I'm not moving forward.
Right. It's so true.
Right. Well, it's keeping me safe because I'm not moving forward. And so now I'm not out there risking, basically truthfully nothing, but my brain thinks it's death,
And I think that's the other thing. And I tell my husband this constantly. I know he gets so annoyed when I say this, but he'll say something and I say, that's just the story you're telling yourself. And like, I am so guilty of it too. He totally calls me out on it. But like, that's another thing I want to let go this year is all of the stories that I tell myself, because they're just stories.
They're just stories. None of it's true.
Nope.
I worked on that last year. That was my big project for last year, is not attaching a story to everything that happened.
Right.
It just is.
It just is.
It just is. So what are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of owning a business, because I don't think I never imagined that for myself. And I think taking the first step was the thing I'm most proud of. Like that first networking meeting 2 years ago, it was so freaking scary. I had never been to a networking meeting. I was living in a new town. I didn't know anybody.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember walking up those stairs, and like, I was so nervous that like I had gone there 2 days prior to like meet with the woman who facilitates it, to see this place, because like that's part of my anxiety, is like not knowing where I'm going and like trying to open doors and they don't open. And it's such a stupid thing to be worried about, but like for whatever reason, I'm so worried about it. So I had already been there just to know where I'm going, like a kindergartner. So I'm walking up the stairs.
You had a dry run.
Yeah. So like my heart is just racing and I'm like about to have a panic attack. Like I can feel it coming. My breathing is shallow, and like the whole meeting, I don't really remember any of it other than like I had to get up and do my little 60-second, and I was just like, like there was no words that really came out, and everyone like clapped. But like that first step was so scary, but it needed to be done, because it gave me the confidence to take more steps.
To take the next step. Well, and here's the thing, I think, and this is another conversation I've been having lately, in 2020, especially because we became such a virtual world, more and more and more, we're only seeing people's highlight reels. Social media already created that situation. And now 2020 exacerbated it by not letting us get together and see the real people. And while it's always good to have folks that you're emulating, like, I'm in the coaching business and I have people that I'm friends with and that I work with that have like multiple $1 million coaching businesses. And that's fantastic. And I love learning from them. And I have no doubts I'm on my way. And that's great. But they're so far ahead of me that I can't actually use them as motivation to take the next step because it feels unique to them.
Right.
But if someone's just a few rungs ahead of you, like here you are, you've done this 2 years in, you're doing the thing. You're scared out of your freaking gourd sometimes, but you're doing the thing. And in my opinion, that is a much more needed story and a much bigger opportunity to affect somebody. Because it's great to have put the big shiny thing in front of somebody and ask them if hey, let me help you get it. And there's a place for that. But there's so many people out there who won't take a step because of how scared they are. So to know that there's enough, like me helping somebody who's really, really scared go to a networking event, now I can tell them, I can teach them, quote unquote, how to break it down into the little things that help them.
Right.
But it's so far removed from something I'm scared of that you're going to have a bigger impact on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I know there are a lot of photographers that it's like, God, I'd like to have a business like their business. But like you said, they're so far ahead of me. Like listening to their stories, they're already coming from a place where they were established and people knew them. And they don't really talk about the beginning of the beginning when they first started out. So
because it's horrible and they've blocked it out. Because we don't want it. I was talking to somebody that I'm like, 2018, I'm just not counting that year. Right? None of it worked. None of it.
It is.
So
there's a lot of
right. It could be doing what I'm doing now if I didn't do that, but we don't need to talk about that.
But I think you do. Like, we definitely do, because like there's a lot of failure that comes along with it. And there it is, the F-bomb right there, failure. But sometimes you need that failure to move ahead and to learn and to grow. And
because you do learn as a child from failure. And somewhere along the way, you get taught that failure is bad.
Right.
And then it gets worse, that not only it's bad, but it's, deadly. So it paralyzes you.
It really does.
When truth be told, the only way you learn is through things that don't work.
Right. So I think it's important to pass on that knowledge of, and even like failure, we're not even talking about like my business went bust, like it could just be little things I tried that just, hey, they didn't work,
That didn't work, right? That didn't work. Well, and the truth is that most things don't work.
It's true.
And that, I think, in the last couple of years, the one thing that has helped me so much is just to go in knowing, not thinking, knowing most things don't work quite the way you want them to work. Now, I expect them to work. I put my full effort into them, because here's the trick. I don't know which of the things don't work. Right. So if you don't put your full effort into it, the couple things that really work well won't happen.
Right.
So it's not an excuse to back off. But if I go in knowing, it's that old thing, I think it was a Coca-Cola story, 50% of advertising doesn't work. The bad news is we don't know which 50%. It's the same thing as an entrepreneur. I'd be happy with 50%, right?
It's true.
And just teaching yourself that you didn't die.
Yes, the world didn't end. You were still safe. Everything's okay. And now maybe let's try something different next time.
Tweak. And it's not abandon ship.
No. Nope. Yeah, I mean, I had another business before I had this business. I had partnered with someone. We did newborns. Did not end well. Like, it was devastating. But at the same time, when I started this business, I knew exactly what I did not want to do again. And
no newborns, no partners.
Yep, no partners. I was like, this is me and that's it. I don't want anybody else. And it's scary to go into business by yourself, but I'm glad I chose that path. And I'm glad I had the failure, because I already kind of knew what I needed to do. And again, I knew what I didn't want to do.
Which, yeah, I think that's a really, really, really good point, that the failure that leads to you understanding what you don't want to do is just as helpful and important as knowing the, as the parts where you're very clear on what you want.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like, I don't want to, we only have so much time, and now you're not wasting time again trying to figure out things that clearly aren't going to work anyways. So it's important to know what you're going to do, but it's also important to know what you don't want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And finding the measurement where it's time to make a decision. Like, I had a great conversation with a friend who owns a business, and he was going to franchise the business. So he bought a booth at a franchise conference. What do you call it? But
like a convention?
Trade show. Trade show. And it didn't work. Nobody bought one. And what made me laugh, because he's fantastic at just laughing at himself, he did it 7 times before he finally and he ended up buying another business in the process. So not only did it not work, but I just loved the approach, that the complete understanding that I probably should have learned after 2 or 3, not 7. And that's why I'm a fan of just measuring everything.
Yeah.
And setting a deadline ahead of time. I'm going to try this for 6 months. I'm going to measure my results and then make a decision. So that those, especially if something scares you, so that you're not doing it out of fear. You're doing it with information.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to ask, what's like your favorite failure? Let's just own it. We're going to cure this problem for you right now. We're going to start reframing it. What's your favorite failure? Like the most ridiculous thing that you tried? Besides.
That's a good question. Oh man, this is one of those questions my brain's like, and I'm sure there's like plenty of them. I'm sure there are so many, but like for whatever reason, I can't grab one.
I'll help you. So when this whole world turned virtual, I had all those speaking gigs set up and they all got canceled. But then very, very quickly, the entrepreneurial groups moved online and we did them by Zoom. Oh my God, I was so bad at my first one. I sucked. I was so disappointed because I wasn't nervous. I'm like, okay, well, if I can get up in front of 500 people in person on stage, I can certainly talk to 30 people on Zoom. Because by then we'd been Zooming for a while. Oh my God, I just sucked. It just wasn't good. To the point where I'm like, that was embarrassing. Because there's like all these rave reviews about me as a speaker in the group. And then this one group of 30 people are probably like, who are those people writing those testimonials?
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, I'd have to say I definitely God, there's so many. Now I'm like, there's so many things that I've failed miserably at. Like some of them are so stupid. Like I remember once I had this thing, like I wanted to go to improv class because I thought maybe it will help me like overcome the social anxiety. But like, so I signed up for the class and I'm all excited to go. And then like, I'm such a chicken shit. And like, I didn't end up going. Like I drove there and then didn't end up going in because I was just petrified of the thought of going in there and having to like interact with people because that's scary. So like,
but you got there. You went as far as to drive there.
And then I just didn't. Like I totally. And that's the thing with like, I think with social anxiety that makes it so difficult to break is because the minute you make the decision to not go, you're like flooded with endorphins, like in relief. And you're like, oh, okay, yes, no, I'm not doing that. But then I always get the next stage, which is like the guilt and like the self-loathing that like, why didn't you just do it? Like, it's such a stupid thing. You could have just gone in there, but like, for whatever reason at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that it's a stupid thing. It's a neuroscience thing.
Yes.
And this is, I think, where I had to learn this as well. how to be kinder to myself about the stuff I could do. I used to consider it a really good day in my first business that I owned. It was a really, really good day when at no point was I in my car slamming my fist on the steering wheel going, oh my God, you're such an idiot. I mean, and would you ever talk to another human being that way? No. And I had to learn the neuroscience and belief structure and subconscious programming that was causing that, because willpower to just not do it doesn't work. Because
Right.
just like you said, you're flooded with endorphins, which becomes an addiction
Yes.
that your brain has. To solve any kind, you get the icky chemical going.
Right. I think the moment I learned that part of it, I was like, oh, it
Oh,
all
I'm
makes
not an
sense now.
idiot. And there's a chemical,
There's a reason this is happening. So yeah, I mean, I failed out of college my first time. So cheers to that. Like, yeah, that was terrible. That was like a real low point where I was like, well, I'm a statistic now. Like, I'm that person that they talk about that first day of school, the one that failed out. That's me. But you know what? I went back and then I had a 4.0 my second time. So there we go.
There you go.
World didn't end.
The world didn't end in between those two things.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, let's stop there. The world didn't end.
Okay.
That's a great teaching point to stop on. The world didn't end. So if people want to get a hold of you, to have another conversation, to find out more about what you do, what is the best way for them to do that?
So I would say Instagram is the social platform I frequent the most, and my Instagram handle is at Teresa Hnat Studio. You can also find me on YouTube. I have a channel there where I post vlogs, kind of like behind the scenes of what I'm up to. Also on Facebook. All of these things are Teresa Hnat Studio.
You're not hiding.
No.
You're not hiding. Awesome. Well, seriously, thank you so much. It was fun getting to have this conversation with you. So many times I talk to outgoing, crazy, ride or die entrepreneurs, and I think it's easy to forget there's just as many entrepreneurs who have the social anxiety and have the nerves, and they're doing really, really well. You can still do really, really well.
It's still possible.
And it's the other thing that's kind of been a little bit beneficial in 2020 is now we're all the same size box.
It's true. It is a little, I'm like, God, what is it going to be like when we go back to in-person networking? It's going to be a little scary again because we're so used to the virtual, but at the same time, like, you'll already know everybody because you've been talking with them on Zoom for a year. So
exactly. It's all good.
It's all good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Ready Yet podcast. I get so motivated by the amazing accomplishments of the remarkable people I meet, and I'm excited to be able to share some of their stories with you. You can find more episodes of Ready Yet at your favorite source for podcasts or at conqueryourbusiness.com. And if you've already decided that you are ready to become the person you need to be to achieve your big goals, feel free to reach out to find out how I can support you in your efforts. Or check out the Work with Erin page on the Conquer Your Business website. I also invite you to share this podcast with anyone you know who loves to learn and be inspired. And if you're so inclined, I'd be absolutely grateful for any reviews you'd like to share as well. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Erin Marcus, hopefully inspiring and helping you to go conquer your big dreams.